Hey, this is Chris with Hacker Philosophy Weekly. And speaking of weekly, this week has been a pretty busy one. I've been recovering from DEF CON from a couple weeks ago. I've been doing lots of things for the team at work, lots of stress that I've taken on, and then eventually remembered to let go of. So, as much as I enjoy writing and producing content, writing my own versions of the Seneca Letters, I really just need some stoicism for me this week. So I've decided to go forward with the series, the Stoic Reaction series, and do the next Seneca Letter, read by Vox Stoica. You can find all of his links to his channels and all the publications and works that he's done in the description for this video. So letter 2 is on discursive reading, which might help me, as I just recently finished reading the biography on William T. Sherman, and have found my way into reading another book by Vietnam fighter pilot John Boyd, who apparently is well known, but also very unknown. I'm interested to see what he did. He's supposed to have redefined modern warfare, and I'm interested to see how I can apply some of those fighter pilot lessons to things like threat hunting and just cyber in general. But that's a different video. But for now, we're going to do letter 2 of Seneca Letter on discursive reading. All right, so hit it, Vox.
On discursiveness in reading. Greetings from Seneca to his friend Lucilius. Judging by what you write me, and by what I hear, I am forming a good opinion regarding your future. You do not...
It's interesting. Seneca's talking about what he hears, right? And what other people are saying. That book I read about William Sherman, he fought with the journalists the whole time, like the news and the media and stuff. So it's interesting that I'm interested to see where Seneca goes with this, about if he's going to be happy about what he heard or if he's going to be kind of upset like someone like Sherman was.
Run hither and thither and distract yourself by changing your abode, for such restlessness is the sign of a disordered spirit. You do not run hither and thither in your future, what I hear. I am forming a good opinion regarding your future. You do not run hither and thither and distract yourself by changing your abode, for such restlessness is the sign of a disordered spirit.
So from the things he's hearing, it sounds like Lucilius is staying put. He's not making these big moves, or he sounds stable, right? He sounds stable.
The primary indication, to my thinking, of a well-ordered mind is a man's ability to remain in one place and linger in his own company.
Yeah, that actually kind of strikes home pretty hard for, not to use emotive language, that would ring true for something that's going on in my life, even just today, like a couple hours before this video was even filmed. Seneca's talking about how he can judge a person or get an idea of a person's confidence in themselves, where they are in life, or their station in life, based on how long they stay in a place, whether that's a physical place to live, with a spouse, something, how long that person can remain in the same spot.
Be careful, however, lest this reading of many authors and books of every sort may tend to make you discursive and unsteady. You must linger among a limited number of master thinkers and digest their works if you would derive ideas which shall win firm hold in your mind.
Okay, so it's not so much staying in one place, it's staying in a place where a person can grow. And to do that, you have to stay around and I would have to surround myself with master thinkers, like people that would inspire me to grow and continue to push my mental boundaries and make me think differently. So revising, and not so much about staying in the right place or staying in a place, but staying in the right place.
Everywhere means nowhere. When a person spends all his time in foreign travel, he ends by having many acquaintances, but no friends. And the same thing must hold true of men who seek intimate acquaintance with no single author, but visit them all in a hasty and hurried manner. Food.
Yeah, it's interesting. Seneca's, from what I gather, he's talking about, you have people that will kind of go around all over the place and take samples, right? And because they have samples from a wide selection of things to include people, they can sample friendships and people. It seems like they're well traveled. Just because they have traveled somewhere doesn't mean that they are intimate or a master of the place that they came back from or whatever it is, the course that they just took, right? But neither is it appropriate to only read one book, like the William Sherman book that I just read. There's only been a few, there have been people that have tried to distill all of the things that he did and write smaller books, but truly you have to read the biographies of him, and of them, there's only like two. And they're both really long books. But to get the true picture, to really deep dive into like who William Sherman was, why he did the things he did, not an interpretation of why somebody thought he did those things. You have to read these biographies, these really long texts.
Food does no good and is not assimilated into the body if it leaves the stomach as soon as it is eaten. Nothing hinders a cure so much as frequent change of medicine.
For me personally, you see a lot of people that will quote things. They'll say like, oh, I have a quote for that. I have a quote for that. I used to be one of those people. I would collect quotes and I would just say, oh, this quote applies to this situation. As I've grown in my philosophical thinking, what Seneca's talking about right now kind of rings true to the person I used to be, which was like, if you just, read books in a superficial manner to say like, oh, there's this person said this in this book, I'm going to apply this quote, without truly understanding the entirety of the works, you're not really doing anybody any service, including yourself.
No wound will heal when one salve is tried after another. A plant which is often moved can never grow strong. There is nothing so efficacious that it can be helpful while it is being shifted about. And in reading of many books is distraction.
I do struggle with that last line. In reading of many books is distraction, because I feel like I should be moving on to different books. So I finished this book, let me go read something else. But truly, if I go back and look at my audiobook collection or my e-reader book collection, like on my Kindle, I go back to the same 5 to 10 books over and over, like How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. I must have read or listened to that book probably 10 to 15 times. And I will go read a different book, and then I'll come back to that book, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, just because it grounded me and had so much good things, and there was so much wisdom in there that I wanted to I didn't need to go look anywhere else, because every time I came back, it changed, my interpretation changed on it. So reading a lot of books or sampling a lot of things or people, you don't really get to put down roots. I don't really get to master anything. I think that's what he's trying to say, at least.
Accordingly, since you cannot read all the books which you may possess, it is enough to possess only as many books as you can read. But, you reply, I wish to dip into one book and then into another. I will tell you that it is a sign of an overnice appetite to toy with many dishes. For when they are manifold and varied, they cloy but do not nourish.
Yeah, this is something similar that happened to me. This is how I ended up on the William Sherman tangent anyway. I started reading books about philosophy and strategy. I've written about this. I read some books about philosophy and strategy, and then I ended up reading about Scipio Africanus, because he was a Stoic and he had great strategy. And that led me to other great generals that may not have been known about, because of the author, B. Liddell Hart. He talked about how only the generals that failed get the books written about them. So Napoleon, there's a couple other ones, Alexander the Great, they all failed eventually, and then they had books written about them. However, the generals that were really successful, they just there's no sticking point to them. So there's no gotcha moment. It's just they led a good life and they were great. To some people, that can be a boring story. So I read about Scipio Africanus, and they mentioned William Sherman in the book as also a Stoic, and another example of somebody that was great that didn't understand anything. And I tried to read his biography at first, and it was just too much. And I ended up, I was like, okay, I need to take a step back because I don't know anything about like the Civil War, the American Civil War, anything about that. So a lot of the things that they're talking about, I can't really understand. So that led me down this like Civil War path of like, I'm going to read these books, these, historical fiction books about the Civil War. That introduced me to, I got to see somebody writing about Sherman from a fictional, historical fiction standpoint. That got me really interested. And then I was able to come back and deep dive into the biography and kind of start putting places and names together and stuff. So I did jump around from book to book, but it was all on one single path. Like I knew the direction I wanted to go to, but my path to get there kind of went this way and that. But I think what Seneca is talking about is going from one topic to the next, to the next, to the next, so that you can appear as well-read or wise. Let's get back to the video. Let's get back to the video and listen to me lecturing.
So you should always read standard authors, and when you crave a change, fall back upon those whom you've read before. Each day, acquire something that will fortify you against poverty, against death, indeed, against other misfortunes as well.
This is something Marcus Aurelius talked about quite a bit. Every day he would wake up and he would repeat this maxim that he made for himself, about all the types of people that he would deal with that day. And this every day he would do it. So that's what Seneca is saying. He's like, if you're going to read something that's going to help you out every day. Something that you as a person can make your own maxims about.
And after you have run over many thoughts, select one to be thoroughly digested that day. This is my own custom. From the many things which I have read, I claim some one part for myself. The thought for today is one which I discovered in Epicurus, for I am wont to cross over even into the enemy's camp, not as a deserter, but as a scout. He says, contented poverty is an honourable estate. Indeed, if it be contented, it is not poverty at all.
I think he's talking about being happy with who you are, right? I mean, it could be happy with what you have, but if he's saying you can be poverty, like you could live in poverty as a choice, then you're doing so because that is your choice and that is who you are, right? You've come to terms with what you need, and that's what you're getting. And being able to interact with people who may take those things away from you because they haven't started their own path. That's important. You'll help yourself be defended, and you'll have enough rational thought to help the other person to stop trying to harm other people.
It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. What does it matter how much a man has laid up in his safe or in his warehouse? How large are his flocks and how fat his dividends? If he covets his neighbour's property and reckons not his past gains, but his hopes of gains to come.
It reminds me of a quote that, I tell my kids and stuff, and I'm sure we've all heard it. It's, don't be upset about what you don't have, but be happy for what you do. And, be thankful for what you do have. And there's all different versions of it, but that craving is just going to drive a person to never be happy, right? Because at the core, they're searching for something. They're searching for something external, when everything that we truly need is internal. What's that quote there? Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. That's just good advice, right? But if you live next to a person and you're like, I really like their house, and you have to see that house every day, that jealousy is going to manifest into something else. It's going to turn into rage. It's going to turn into hatred for yourself. But really, I have no idea if my neighbor's house was given to them, if they earned it, how many hardships that family had to go through to get that house. I don't know those things, nor does it matter that I do. I just have to choose to let it go and worry about myself.
Do you ask what is the proper limit to wealth? It is, first, to have what is necessary, and second, to have what is enough. Farewell.
To have what is necessary and to have what is enough is enough. Yeah, that requires that we as people, that myself, ask some really get introspective, right? I was going to say ask some tough questions, but using emotive language isn't very stoic, right? So it just requires me to be introspective, to dedicate the time to be introspective. And, even just reacting in this video, it's already helped me from my stressful week that I've had. Think about some of my own situations. So, yeah, Seneca Letters are great. I really appreciate Vox reading them because he's got a nice reading voice, and I don't. And I don't have to read them now. So I appreciate that. So I think the moral of this letter was just, if he was happy that his friend he hasn't heard reports of his friend like running around doing all these crazy things. And that gave him the impression that his friend was satisfied with who he was as a person and didn't need to go chase other things. So maybe this letter was just him saying, good job. But yeah, maybe I should work on that myself. So awesome. Well, thank you. And I hope you found this helpful. There'll be more stuff up on cyberseneca.com. You can find a link for that in the description for this video as well. And I'll post my own letters and strategy and military tactics for cybersecurity and all that stuff as I get time to make them. Try not to spread myself around like they mentioned in the video. Just focus on one thing at a time and make sure that it gets out. Cool. Thank you.